You think of prayer as an act of asking, a plea to change something outside you. You measure its power by visible results, relief, solution, or deliverance. But Al-Ghazali questioned this very premise. He said prayer does not move the world. It moves the one who prays. The event you call change is only the reflection of an inner shift. To him, prayer was not a request but participation, the alignment of human will with divine order. You begin to wonder, if prayer does not alter events, what does it alter? If the world remains as it is, but your awareness transforms, is that not the deeper change? And if the one who prays changes, can reality remain the same? In the 11th century, Al-Ghazali held unmatched authority in theology and philosophy. He mastered the arguments of reason and the subtleties of faith. Yet at the height of fame, he found himself hollow. His words were precise, but certainty eluded him. He called it a disease of intellect, knowledge without transformation. This inner fracture drove him to leave his post in Baghdad and withdraw from the world of debates. It was not retreat, but recalibration. He realized that truth cannot be grasped through intellect alone. It must be lived as awareness. From that awareness, prayer reappeared to him, not as speech, but as the way knowledge becomes real. When you pray, you assume a division. There is a you who asks and a higher power who decides. This seems reasonable, yet it hides a subtle illusion. If all existence depends on one source, how can two stand apart? Al-Ghazali observed that ordinary prayer strengthens this duality. You build an image of yourself as needy and of God as distant. But the one who prays and the one who grants are not two realities. The true act of asking is not demand, but alignment. Prayer begins when the mind stops negotiating and starts seeing. What you call asking may in fact be the movement of truth through you, the universe remembering itself through a single voice. Al-Ghazali described prayer as the mirror of intention. Every request reveals what the self values most. Some prayers arise from fear, others from clarity. The purpose of the practice is not to inform God, but to expose the self. When intention becomes purified, prayer loses its bargaining tone. It turns from desire to harmony. The heart no longer asks for its own comfort. It asks for reality to be as it must be. This is what Al-Ghazali called sincerity of will. At that stage, prayer and fulfillment are inseparable. Reality does not resist because nothing remains that resists it. But how can such sincerity be reached while self-interest still governs the tongue? You believe prayer expresses freedom, that through will you can alter destiny. Yet Al-Ghazali saw freedom differently. He said your will is not independent. It is a thread in a greater design. When you decide to pray, that very impulse has already been willed by the source of all will. You are not initiating speech. You are echoing what existence has already uttered. This is not fatalism, but intimacy. The paradox is clear. You are both the speaker and the spoken through. When your will aligns with the divine, prayer becomes effortless because it was never separate. If every sincere prayer is part of the eternal script, then what is destiny except God listening to himself through you? For Al-Ghazali, prayer has two layers, form and presence. The form disciplines the body. Presence disciplines attention. You may complete the form while the mind wanders endlessly, yet without presence, the act remains incomplete. He wrote that true prayer begins only when thought, word, and attention converge. When they align, separation ends. You no longer perform prayer. You are prayer. Every utterance becomes self-listening. You realize that distraction is not a failure of concentration, but a failure of sincerity. Where attention is absent, the self speaks without meaning. But when awareness becomes whole, even silence contains dialogue. Who is left to speak when presence itself listens? Al-Ghazali taught that prayer does not primarily change external events. It changes perception. When awareness clears, the same world appears different. The believer no longer sees contradiction between loss and mercy, or between delay and answer. Reality was not cruel. Perception was clouded. In this sense, every genuine prayer is a correction of sight. The shift is not from misfortune to fortune, but from confusion to coherence. When the heart aligns with what is, resistance dissolves. The event remains, but its meaning transforms. The miracle is not the alteration of outcome, but the unveiling of order. If prayer changes how you see, and perception defines your world, then has not the world itself changed? As you go deeper, the structure of I and thou weakens. Prayer no longer feels like an exchange, but a recognition. Al-Ghazali said that perfect prayer ends not in sound, but in understanding. Speech becomes unnecessary when meaning is realized. The one who asks and the one who hears dissolve into a single awareness. Prayer, once a bridge between two, becomes the ground of one. You begin to see that there was never separation to begin with, only the illusion of it. When the edge disappears, what remains is the act itself, untouched by identity. What is left to change when nothing stands apart from what is already complete? Al-Ghazali described existence as a web of causes, physical, mental, and divine. Prayer does not break this order. It joins its innermost layer. At that level, will and outcome coincide. To align inwardly is to participate in divine causation itself. When your heart becomes truthful, events seem to respond because you now move with the rhythm of reality. Nothing external bends. Only vision aligns. Thus, prayer becomes the means by which the divine reveals itself through form. The response is not delivered to you, but as you. The world you perceive after such prayer is not newly made. It is newly seen. What you once called an answer was always present, awaiting your readiness to recognize it. You began by asking whether prayer changes reality. You end by realizing that prayer is the movement of reality through awareness. Al-Ghazali's discipline was not about acquiring miracles, but perceiving order. The purpose of prayer was never persuasion, but participation, to enter consciously into the act by which existence sustains itself. When you pray with full awareness, there is no request left, only alignment. No asking, only being. The words may fade, but the state remains. The finite returning to its source in every breath of awareness. Nothing external was ever altered. What changed was the one who saw. And when perception becomes true, you find that nothing ever needs to change at all.